Welcome everyone, and thank you to our staff and councillors for today. We're having our last council meeting for 2023. So if I could start by asking everyone to be upstanding for our opening prayer. Almighty God, we ask that you be present at this meeting to assist us in our service to the community through local government. We pray that our decisions will be wise and taken with goodwill and clear conscience. Amen. Item 2, councillor and officer presence at the meeting. We have all councillors, we have our CEO, Acting Director of Infrastructure and Environment, and our Director of Community and Planning. Apologies and granting of leave. Nil. Disclosures of conflict of interest. I actually have a conflict on item 10.1 as an indirect conflict.
Just say the nature of why that is.
The tender, one of the tenders that came in was from S&K Whitehead, who I have a work relationship with a gravel quarry. Item 5 is confirmation of minutes from the ordinary council meeting held on the 22nd of November 2023. Someone like to move those minutes? Councillor Anderson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move the recommendation as presented.
Thanks, Councillor Anderson. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Dickshay. All those in favour? Carried. No one against. Petitions and joint letters. I'll hand over to our CEO because we have a petition.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Councillors, we have received one petition. I will read to you the petition. There was a covering letter that went with the petition, and that has also been included in Appendix 1, but I won't read that out to you. But the petition states, we, the undersigned, are concerned about Towham Shire's proposed widening of the footpath in Hanson Street CBD. This will restrict the space available to access parked vehicles and to manoeuvre vehicles into and out of parking spaces. We regard this situation as unsafe. The footpaths are already an adequate width. The gutters should be retained at the original 3.9 metre distance from the shop fronts. And there are 161 signatories to the petition.
Thank you. Do we have any?
We would normally have a motion to accept the petition, and then you may decide what you would like to do with the petition. Sorry, councillors, just explaining to the Mayor, because it's not often that we receive petitions. We would generally have a motion accepting the petition, and then council would make a decision in terms of how the petition is dealt with. Our local laws, our governance rules provide for you to lay the petition on the table for a month until the next council meeting, or alternatively you may have an alternative resolution made today to deal with the petition.
So we'll start, if someone could move a motion to accept the petition. Councillor Dickshay.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move a motion that we accept the petition.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Scales. All in favour? Carried. Does anyone move a motion in regard to the petition? Councillor Scales.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move 2 points: that we consider this matter at the special council meeting on the 10th of January and that a report be provided to that meeting addressing the concerns raised in the petition.
Thanks, Councillor Scales. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Dickshay. Councillor Scales, would you like to speak to that motion?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just briefly, this petition has come at what I'd say probably a late stage in the program, delivering the Corryong CBD streetscape. It has raised some concerns with councillors that we would like to see addressed potentially before the contract re-begins after the Christmas break, and we do understand it's going to put a bit of pressure on our staff considering the Christmas break as well, but I think it's very important that we do take on the contents of the petition and consider what's been raised. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Scales. Councillor Dickshay, would you like to speak to that?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to add that there is a significant number of signatories to the petition, and I feel that it deserves quite some consideration, and I look forward to dealing with that on the 10th of January.
Thanks, Councillor Dickshay. Anyone else like to speak to Councillor Wortman?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. When we say the 10th of January, can we just add 2024?
Yes. Be a bit late if it was longer than that, wouldn't it? Anyone else speak to the motion? We'll put the motion then. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Item 7 is public question time. No questions. Item 8, informal meeting of councillors.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, through you, we've had some challenges with some staffing, with the staff member being unwell, and so we'll need to bring those meeting records to the January meeting.
So we'll move a motion that that information be noted. If that's, would someone like to move a motion? Councillor Wortman.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd like to defer this item until the January meeting and be presented.
Thanks, Councillor Wortman. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Anderson. Don't need to speak to that. Yes. No. Anyone else? No. We'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. 9's organisational improvement. 9.1's performance reporting graphs. We'll take those as read. Any questions or clarification on that report? No? Would someone like to move a motion? Councillor Wortman.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move that the report be noted.
Thanks, Councillor Wortman. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Anderson. Like to speak to that at all? No. Anyone else? We'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. (9.2) Action sheet reports. So anything needs clarification there? We'll take that one as read as well. Any questions or clarification from the councillors? Councillor Wortman.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to make a comment on the action 15.1, reappointment of Chief Executive Officer. Given that that decision was made at the last council meeting and the CEO wasn't present as she had a conflict, I'd just like to congratulate the Ms Phelps on her reappointment, and I'm sure the Mayor would like to maybe make comment.
Thanks, Councillor Wortman. Yes, we're very lucky to have our CEO for another 4 years, and thank her very much for the work that she's put into council over numerous years, and look forward to the next 12 months, 8 months anyway, and see how we go after that. So, thank you. Tell me where you were, Dave. Did you
Oh,
move that?
no, I just want to make comment.
Yep. Sorry,
yeah,
so
no,
with anyone, if
I'll
there's nothing
move.
further? Yep. Councillor Wortman,
Thank you,
Move
Mr Mayor. I'd like to move that the report be noted.
thank you, Councillor Wortman. A seconder, Councillor Dickshay. All those in favour? Carried. Nine point three is occupational health and safety report.
Did you take that as well?
We'll take that one as read as well. Questions or clarification on that report? Councillor Anderson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. In the report, we've talked about the rat tests being available. Are they still available to our residents? And if so, where would they find them?
Sure. Through you, Mr Mayor. The rat tests are available from our offices, and so yes, they are still available. We are closed over the Christmas New Year break, as you're aware, but we just need to check the hours of our library, because we'll be able to have some located there if we've got the staff on board through that break.
That's terrific for the community. Thank you.
Any further questions or clarification? Someone like to move the motion? Councillor Anderson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move that the report be noted.
Thanks, Councillor Anderson. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Scales. Councillor Anderson, speak to that at all?
No, thank you.
Councillor Scales. Anyone else? Put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. 10's asset management, 10.1's Towing walking track construction, tender evaluation, and this is where I'll depart the room.
Would you like to?
Is that over?
You want to do it? Yeah, that's right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to provide information to support the assessment of tender submission for the construction of town walking track along Brook Street at Tawang. The report also seeks approval to appoint the recommended contractor, and the recommendation is as presented.
Thank you to our Director. Councillors, we have a recommendation before us. Do we have a motion? Oh. Thank you, Councillor Scales.
Thanks, Madam Acting Madam Chair. Sorry, it's been a while since we had a female in that position. I'd like to move the recommendation as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Scales. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Dickshay. Would Councillor Scales, would you like to speak on the motion?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Look, it's great that this recommendation has finally come up to Council. It's been a very long process. As we know, the designs aren't going to suit everyone, but it's probably the best outcome that we could come to with the funding available and the contractors that are put in at the time and in time. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Scales. Councillor Dickshay, would you like to speak on the motion?
No, thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, so, sorry, Councillor Dick
However, Madam Deputy Mayor, I do have a question of the officer before we put the motion. Is that possible?
Are you seeking clarification?
Yes.
Under the governance rules, we technically wouldn't ask for clarification at this point. It would only be in relation to the motion, but it's really at the discretion of the chair to allow the question.
I can't see a problem if that's okay with the councillors. If Councillor Dick asks,
Thank you.
clarifies his
My question is, if this tender is awarded, is there any indication at what point the construction might be expected to start?
To you, Madam Chair, if this tender is appointed, the contractor is happy to commence work early January, and we'll try and get the contract through as soon as possible, and we would like to have it constructed during the summer period, so I would be looking to have it commence by Jan or February.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Director. Now, is anyone opposed to this motion? Are there any other councillors who'd like to speak for or against the motion? Thank you, Councillor Wortman.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I'm pleased that there was 4 tenders received, which is great, and I just see that the project will use local contractors and local materials and services, so I think it's great for the local community. I just want to make that comment.
Thanks, Councillor Wortman. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Thank you.
Councillor, go ahead back in.
Right, yeah, very good. We'll be up to 10.2. Should have just done that, shouldn't you?
Oh, sorry.
10.2, Wise Creek Road upgrades. And again, I'll call on our Acting Director.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to provide information to support the assessment of tender submissions for Wises Creek Road Upgrade Stage 3. This report also seeks approval to appoint the recommended contractor, and the recommendation is as presented.
Any questions? I'd like to thank the Acting Director. Any questions or clarification? Councillors? Do we have a motion? Councillor Wortman.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move the recommendation as presented.
Thanks, Councillor Wortman. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Anderson. Councillor Wortman, would you like to speak to that?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. This is a continuation of this project. We've done stage 1 and 2. Yeah, look, the community, there's a number of houses up there and the community really appreciates it, and yeah, I'm very pleased that this 3rd stage is being considered.
Thanks, Councillor Wortman. Councillor Anderson, would you like to speak to that
No,
at all?
thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anyone else like to speak to the motion? Put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. 10.3 is Yabba Road corner widening, and again, call on our Acting Director.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to provide information to support the assessment of tender submission for the Yaba Road corner widening. The report also seeks approval to appoint the recommended contractor, and the recommendation is as presented.
Thank you. Any questions or clarification on that? Would someone like to move motion? Councillor Dickshay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move the recommendations as presented.
And a seconder, Councillor Anderson. Councillor Dickshay, would you like to speak to that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a the removal of some dangerous corners is on Yabba Road is something that's been of concern to their community for quite a while, and it's good that we can finally get on to dealing with that.
Councillor Anderson, would you like to speak to that?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just agree with Councillor Dickshay. It's been in the wind for a while, so it's really great to see that it's getting done. So,
Yep.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak against or to the report? The motion, sorry. Councillor Scales.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just endorse Councillor Dickshay and Councillor Anderson's comments. I know this was a concern brought to me over 11 years ago when I first ran for council. Obviously, everything goes into a budgetary cycle and grants are applied for, etc. So it is great to see this contract being awarded.
Thanks, Councillor Scales. Councillor Waltman, did I see your hand raised?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I just confer with my fellow councillors. As Councillor Scales said, this issue has been raised for a long time. It's a school bus route, and I feel that it's great that it's coming to fruition. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's nothing further, put the motion. All those in favour? No one against? Carried. (10.4) High Country Rail Trail pedestrian bridge over the Tlangata Creek. And our Acting Director, very busy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to provide information to support the assessment of tender submission for the Talangara Creek pedestrian bridge on the High Country Rail Trail at Bulio. The report also seeks approval to appoint the recommended contractor, and the recommendation is as presented.
Thank you. Any questions or clarification on the report, councillors? Nothing? We've got someone move a motion. Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move the recommendation as presented.
Thanks, Councillor Anderson. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Wortman. Councillor Anderson, would you like to speak to your motion?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. It's nice to see this link is being created, and the trail is now not on the road. So it's a win-win all round for this one, I think.
Thanks, Councillor Anderson. Councillor Wortman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to confer with Councillor Anderson. Yes, it alleviates a major safety issue of the rail trail. People had to go out on the Murray Valley Highway to cross Tlangata Creek, and this is the missing link, so I'm pleased to see it's going to be built.
Thanks, Councillor Wortman. Anyone else like to speak to the motion? Councillor Scales.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Confer with Councillor Anderson and Councillor Wortman. However, I will flag that this was an external grant that was applied for by Parklands or Riwodonga and the Tlangata Rail Advisory Group. It has come in with a shortfall, which we have had to use some other funding, being LRCIP funding, to prop that up. So whilst it is a great result, it's another one which we've had a couple previous, and I know we've got one further down that was actually an external applicant that we may be buffering that one up as well once that decision occurs. So it's important for probably community groups to remember that when they're applying for grants, please try to make sure you've got enough budget there, because council certainly won't be in a position into the future to be propping these projects up financially as we are at the current stage. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Scales. Anyone else like to speak to that? We'll put the motion. All those in favour? No one against? Carried. (10.5) Memorandum of Understanding between Tauranga Shire and the Border Walla Football Netball Club Social Group. Anyone wanting to speak to that? So that's our, right, very good. Our Director of Community and Planning.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report is presented because a decision of council is required for the proposed signing of the Memorandum of Understanding between council and the Border Walla Football Netball Club Social Group. As is apparent in the report, the group in its previous form used to use the Walla Recovery Centre for a range of activities, and as such they've sought to have a agreement struck between us and them to facilitate ongoing use of that, and also to allow potential future uses, for example for the CFA and other aspects which the MOU has taken into account. The recommendation is as presented.
Thank you. And do we have any questions or clarification on that report? If not, would someone like to move a motion? Councillor Wortman.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move the report as presented with one additional point. Under the Tauranga Shire maintenance agreement, we list irrigation of the oval. I'd like to remove that. The reason being we have no budget allocation for water to irrigate the oval. We've got a maintenance allocation for maintaining the surrounds and the oval. But I don't think, with no sporting facility on there, I can't justify irrigation.
Thanks, Councillor Wortman. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Scales. Councillor Wortman, would you like to speak to that any further, or
No, thanks.
happy with Councillor Scales? Would anyone else like to speak to the motion? Councillor Anderson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. It's really terrific to see this facility being revitalised, so I hope the community embraces it and things start to happen for Walla.
Yes, I think I'd like to add to that it's really good to see the Walla Community Recovery Committee actually joining with the Border Walla Football Netball Club to create this social group that will be of a great asset to the Walla and the surrounding area. So I think it's a good outcome. If there's nothing further, we'll put the motion. All those in favour? None against? Carried. (10.6) the Mitta Mountain Bike Park Committee of Management. And I'll call on our Director of Community and Planning.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report is being presented because a decision of council is required. As the report outlines, Mitta Valley Inc., which is a community-based organisation, applied for funding under the Local Economic Recovery Funds to build the Mitta Mountain Bike Park according to their master plan that was done previously. They did receive funding for stage 1 of the mountain bike park, and unfortunately there is a shortfall between the original funding and what's available to complete the current the mountain bike park. As a result, they've requested a contribution of council for $200,000 towards the completion of stage 1 of the mountain bike park. They've also requested that council assumes the committee of management of the Minna Mountain Bike Park. This is a requirement outlined by DECA that no community groups would become committees of management to address some of the risks associated with community groups running committees of management on DECA land, and as a result it's presented that you consider us becoming the committee of management for the land that is within the mountain bike park. It's important to note that the committee of management extends to the trail only and not to all the forested areas that would be contained within that area. The recommendation is as presented.
I'd like to thank the Director, and do we have any questions or clarification? None? That's very good. Would someone like to move the motion? Councillor Scales.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm happy to move the recommendation as presented.
Thanks, Councillor Scales. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Dickshay. Councillor Scales, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Look, this is an exciting project. It is going to go over the budget, which was once again applied for by an external from council. But as mentioned, it is an exciting project. Its overruns have come via them not receiving the full amount of funding that was available or that was applied for, and the increase in construction costs that has occurred over the last couple of years, and offset planting being more expensive than expected, even though they have been able to negotiate that down by changing the track around. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Scales. Councillor Dickshay.
No, thank you.
Anyone else like to speak to the motion? No. I think it's the only thing I'd like to add is that something that council's looking at an agreement with the mountain bike Mid Valley Inc. To run the mountain bike and do the maintenance, and the winning agreement for that. Councillor Waltman.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I'd just like to take that point a bit further. As the officer has said clearly, the contract will have to outline the maintenance and the reporting obligations, and I think that's very important, as you've just mentioned.
Thanks, Councillor Waltman. If there's nothing further, we'll put the motion. All those in favour? None against? Carried. And we have 11.1's Community Service Report, and I'll call on our Director of Community and Planning.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report is a regular report to provide an update to councillors on the activities of the Community Services team. Although I'm sure you've all read it, I just really wanted to draw your attention to two of the activities that I think were wonderful to see happen. The first was the completion of the outdoor space in Bellbridge. It was a long-awaited project, and it looks absolutely fantastic, so great that children will be enjoying that space for years to come. The second was the successful staging of the Evolve music-based youth event in Tallangatta. As many of you will know, we previously ran it in Corryong, and the idea was always to run it the second year in Tallangatta and then see how it went. And it was great to see a youth-driven event get delivered again, and hopefully looking forward to doing something else in the Upper Murray the next time. The recommendation is that the report be noted.
I'd like to thank the Director for the report. Any questions or clarification? Councillor Wortman.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. And look, the officer might, I've got a number of questions, but the officer might have to take them on notice. I see there childcare in Toolangatta is having considerable high demand, and are there any ideas for alleviating the Toolangatta situation?
Through you, Mr Mayor. Yes, we have a growing waitlist of childcare in Toolangatta. So we've already commenced conversations with the department about potential capacity projects and looking at what might be possible in terms of different existing buildings, new buildings, temporary buildings into the new year next year to address some of that. It's probably one of our top priorities, and we're really committed to making sure it doesn't affect the provision of kindergarten and childcare, so that we don't have to cut one for the other.
Thank you. Just on the 30 hours per week kindergarten, it just says modifications or extensions to existing facilities may be required. Any facilities or in the planning stage?
Through you, Mr Mayor, all of the facilities, in short, except for Walwa, where we do have capacity, although we're looking at alternative sites for that centre as well.
Thank you. Just on the neighbourhood house, utilising the old kindergarten building, just any feedback how that's progressing?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I think that the attendance records alone probably would suggest it's been pretty well received.
Yes.
I think one of the wonderful things about having a site versus a virtual one is that people have a place to come to, and I guess that the statistics that we don't publish are actually the people that drop in between for help and support and access to services that they don't necessarily know about. And we do have legal services and job services currently using that site as well on a temporary basis. So yeah, fantastic to have that centre.
I'm glad to hear you say that, because I had a note here saying the neighbourhood house should be commended, given their calendar and the attendees that have been there. Again, might have to take this on notice. Talontoon Tennis Club, how far away are we from submitting a grant application?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'm happy to take that one on notice under the next report.
Yep. And just, sorry, the last one, sorry for all these questions, just on the Bullio Football Netball Club and their project, female-friendly facilities, just inquiring who the project manager of that project is.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'm happy to take it under the next report item.
Yep. Thank you.
You might have jumped the gun. Any further questions or clarification? Someone like to move a motion? Councillor Dickshay.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move the report be noted.
Thanks, Councillor Dickshay. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Wortman. Councillor Dickshay, would you like to speak to that? Councillor Wortman.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to thank our staff, all the tremendous work that's happening in this space. It's fantastic, as the report reflects.
A lot going on, yep. Anyone else like to speak to the motion? We'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. 11.2 is Recreation, Arts and Culture. And again, I'll call on our Director of Community and Planning.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report is also a regular report to provide an update on the activities of Recreation, Arts and Culture Department, and it will be the last from them because we have changed the coordinators, so that the new coordinator is now Recreation Community Development, and the existing coordinator that was the coordinator of Recreation, Arts and Culture is now Youth, Arts and Culture. So I probably want to start by thanking Joe for the time that he spent in the role of Coordinator Recreation, Arts and Culture. Particularly just wanted to draw your attention to the detailed design work that went into the Talondoon tennis courts. My understanding is that is complete at this stage, and we will be looking for grant funding opportunities moving forward. In terms of, also we found out during the period that the Bullio Reserve was successful in the female-friendly facilities grant. So congratulations to them, and happy to take a question on notice as per the previous item as to who the project manager will be. The recommendation is the report be noted.
Any questions or clarification? Councillor Wortman.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd like to apologise. I read down the page too far and I asked that question in the last item. Sorry about that.
Scrolled too far.
Yes.
If there's no further questions or clarification, someone like to move motion? Councillor Anderson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move the recommendation as presented.
Thanks.
Oh, sorry. That the report be noted, beg your pardon.
Yep. Thanks, Councillor Anderson. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Scales. Councillor Anderson, would you like to speak to that report at all?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just to say there's lots going on in this space as well, so congratulations to all concerned. Running pools is not an easy job and it's happening and we still have our pools open, so I think that's pretty good. So, Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Anderson. Councillor Scales, did you have anything to add? Anyone else like to speak to the motion? We'll put the motion. All those in favour? None against? Carried. 11.3 is Emergency Management Report, and call on our Director of Community and Planning again.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report is a report provided as an update to emergency management team. We have done, on the activities of the emergency management team. We have done it as an out-of-cycle report, just to provide an update prior to the Christmas period. As you'll see from the report, there's quite a lot of work that's gone on into what the team has been working on. But I particularly wanted to highlight actually more recently we did run an expression of interest process for the Municipal Emergency Management Planning Committee and received 6 community members' applications. So it was just fabulous to see that community interest in municipal emergency management planning. I also wanted to note the quite significant training and I guess resource improvements that we've made around emergency management in terms of making sure that staff understand our role in emergency management and are well trained and are able to stand up quite a significant team for a small council in the event of an emergency. The recommendation is the report be noted.
Any questions or clarification? Councillor Wortman.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just have to confer with the officer. Look, the training is so important. A lot of people sitting at this table were here when the fires hit in 1920, and look, that training is so important, and we're building capacity within our team, which is fantastic. And yeah, just like to thank the staff.
Thanks, Councillor Wortman. Any other questions or clarification? Councillor Dickshay.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I'd like you please to pass on your thanks to the coordinator for the job that he's doing. I have far more confidence now in our preparedness and preparation of the whole organisation, and I think we're in a much better place than we have been in the past, and it's great to see. So thank you.
Just one question from me. So I see we had 6 community applicants, which I think is really great. Who actually decides who becomes the committee members?
Through you, Mr Mayor, the community members are voted on via the Municipal Emergency Management Planning Committee. Yep. So the core agencies, if you like, each get a vote and it's shortlisted. Although it wasn't in the report, I can tell you that they were intending to replace one role on the basis of a resignation of a previous committee member, and they actually put 2 roles in because they felt that the quality of the applicants was so high it was worth putting an extra community member on.
Very good, thank you. If there's no further questions or clarification, someone like to move the motion? Councillor Dickshay.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move that the report be noted.
Thank you, Councillor Dickshay. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Scales. Councillor Dickshay, would you like to speak to that at all? Councillor Scales.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just quickly, Councillor Wortman and Councillor Dickshay commented with their question earlier, and it was about how great it is to see the capacity building within the organisation. It's important to note that that is staff from other areas within council and not necessarily from emergency management. This is a constant right across Victoria, indeed the metro, so that they haven't got the capacity. They've got a lot more capacity than Towong with the amount of staff that they have built in. So it's great to see that we're able to pull people in from other areas within the organisation to do that. However, I'll just flag it would be great to get some additional funding from the state for emergency management. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Scales. Couldn't agree more. Would anyone else like to speak to the motion? We'll put the motion. All those in favour? None against? Carried. Item 12, Economic and Tourism Development. 12.1, Activating Lake Hume. And our Director of Community and Planning.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report is provided on the recommendation that Council considers the release of the Activating Lake Hume Master Plan for community feedback. As you'll be aware, that Activating Lake Hume Master Plan was an idea that came out of the Destination Management Plan consultation process, and as a result, Council officers secured funding through the Victorian State Government's Investment Fast Track program to undertake the plan. The plan identifies a range of possible opportunities, and we're hopeful that because it was funded under the Fast Track program, that there might be some future funding available to actually do some of the proposals. We are proposing under the recommendation that the period of consultation is extended quite considerably, given that it's Christmas period. So the proposal is that it would be open until the 11th of February 2024 to allow for consideration in the March 2024 meeting. The recommendation is as presented.
Thank you. Do we have questions or clarification on that report? Councillor Dickshay.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Has there been much reaction from neighbouring councils to this master plan or the draft of it?
Through you, Mr Mayor, probably unlike maybe some of our other master plans, obviously this Lake Hume has a range of local governments that immediately abut it, and they are in various stages of developing their own plans for aspects of various things along the actual lake. So we've had quite good engagement from both Wodonga and Albury as a result of that, probably more so Albury because of some of their interest around connecting the lake up with their existing cycle infrastructure, as well as possible future uses of the Bethanga Bridge. So yeah, it's been great to have a project where we can work a bit more closely with some of the other neighbouring shows.
Thank you.
Councillor Scales.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. This may have to be taken on notice and fully appreciate that. I'm just wondering how this will be put out to the community, and indeed I think it would be great to try to get feedback from tourists that will be within our area as well. So wondering if we've actually got a bit of a comms plan there to ensure that the tourists coming to our area are aware that they can read the report and make submissions as well, because let's face it, Activating Lake Hume has a fair degree about the tourists coming to our area. Thank you.
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor, I can partly take that on notice and partly answer it. So we will use the normal communication strategies, which includes a survey, social media, publication in print media. We also usually allow for people to make direct submissions or emails, book a time with the project manager, and we have trialled postcards in key locations for tourists to give us feedback on things. So we can certainly look at whether that's an opportunity for this project. Yeah. Unfortunately, not as many venues on Lake Hume as we probably like to be able to capture those tourists, but we can give it a go.
Any further questions, clarification? Someone like to move motion? Councillor Anderson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move the recommendation as presented.
Thanks, Councillor Anderson. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Wortman. Councillor Anderson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It's an exciting project. As residents may or may not know, I do live in that area. But I'd really encourage the whole Shire to participate in this one and give back the feedback so we know exactly what you're thinking on the project. It's not just for our area, it actually feeds into the rest of the Shire. So please participate and we'll go from there. Looking forward to hearing from you.
Thanks, Councillor Anderson. Any... Who else was it? Councillor Wortman.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yes, totally agree with Councillor Anderson. We encourage people to offer feedback to the master plan. And as the officer explained, Town Shire has we have had the most frontage to the lake, but it's great to have feedback from our neighbouring councils as well. Look, the master plan aligns with a number, as the report says, with a number of our council strategies, you know, the Town Council Plan, the Economic Development Strategy, our Rail Bridge, Talanga tomorrow. I mean, I just think it's an exciting project and I'm looking forward to the feedback from our communities. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Wortman. Anyone else speak to the motion? Put the motion. All those in favour? None against? Carried. Is land use planning. 13.1 land use planning report. Again, we'll call on our Director of Community and Planning.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is a regular report on the planning permit, land use planning permit activity within Tauranga Shire. As you'll note from the report, there are currently 25 active permits, and pleasingly for the month of October specifically, we had no permits over 60 days, making us probably the best performing council in all of Victoria, rural council in all of Victoria. I did want to note a small error on page 2 of the appendix. Under the location developments, there are 2 lines at the bottom of the table, both referring to other. The line referring to other and the number 7 should be removed, and it should be read as 28 in total developments. The recommendation is that the report be noted.
Thank the Director for the report. Any questions or clarification? Councillor Dickshay.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to thank the Director for the comprehensive report. It's got a lot more information than we've had previously.
Thanks, Councillor Dickshay. If there's no further questions or clarification, someone like to move motion? Councillor Dickshay.
Thank you. I'd like to move that the report be noted.
Thanks, Councillor Dickshay. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Scales. Councillor Dickshay, would you like to speak to that further? Councillor Scales. Anyone else like to speak to the report? We'll put the report. All those in favour? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Councillor reports. Nil, urgent business. We have... Oops, hang on, sorry. Councillor Dickshay. There is a councillor report, sorry.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd just briefly like to mention 3 meetings that I attended in the last month. On the 23rd of November, I went to the Goulburn Murray Climate Alliance AGM in Shepparton, which was the first time that that group had all met in person since COVID time. I'm the only representative from our council that goes. Many of the other organisations have several offices, and they have the ability to have, they've got funding for several offices to deal with those issues. It was a great meeting. Through being a part of that organisation, we have access to lots of different resources and programs, and I look forward to the time where we have some staffing to deal with that as well. And there was an excellent presentation provided by the CEO of VicGrid and also the General Manager of AusNet Services for energy distribution, and they covered a whole lot of issues around issues with the power grid, dealing with the renewable transmission, so it was quite interesting. The second meeting I went to was the Upper Murray Incorporated AGM, also on the 23rd of November, and it was an excellent turnout of community members there. They celebrated their successes for the last year, and the big one that they talked about was the completion of the microgrid project in conjunction with Indigo Power. And they've elected a new chairperson, being Joe McKinnon. But there's probably some issues for that group around getting some new members on board to take them into the future. And the third meeting was just recently the school awards and presentations at Sacred Heart College, and they've got a good thing going there, really good community vibe, and they're very passionate, and I think the kids coming through that program are going to be good citizens. Thank you.
Very good. Nothing further on council reports. Urgent business.
No, we
No.
don't have an urgent business.
Committee minutes. Audit and Risk Committee. Meeting minutes. Take as read. Any questions or clarification on those minutes? Someone like to move the motion? Councillor Dickshay.
I'd like to move that those minutes be noted.
Thanks, Councillor Dickshay. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Anderson. Like to speak to those at all? Anyone else speak to the motion? We'll put the motion. All those in favour? None against? Carried. 17's council policies. There are no policies for review or adoption. Sealing of documents. We have one light item, so we need a motion to admit the item, which is on waste disposal contract. Will we move
To have it
admitted, and then someone will speak to it?
Thank you.
Would someone like to move a motion to admit the item? Councillor Scales, a seconder. Councillor Dickshay. We'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. I'll call on our CEO to speak to the motion.
Thanks,
To
Mr.
the recommendation.
to the
The
report,
report.
maybe. Thank
Yes.
you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, you will recall that at the council meeting on the 26th of July 2023, there was a resolution to enter into a contract with Albury City Council for the disposal of waste to the Albury Waste Management Centre. A contract has now been prepared, and I have reviewed that, and we now need to sorry, I'm just looking at a typo on this report. We now need a council resolution to apply the common seal in accordance with Local Law 1. So it's my recommendation that you resolve that the CEO be authorised to sign and seal the Albury Waste Management Centre disposal contract in accordance with Local Law 1, common seal and miscellaneous penalties.
Any questions or clarification? Someone like to move that a motion? Councillor Dick Shay.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move that recommendation as presented.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Scales, would you like to speak to that at all?
No.
Councillor Scales?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just to note that by having our waste disposal contract with Albury as opposed to other suppliers will be a saving for our ratepayers. Thank you.
Be a great outcome. There's any further? Councillor Waltman?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to agree with Councillor Scales. Just common sense that it goes to the closest landfill and, like you say, a saving to our ratepayers.
Thanks, Councillor Waltman. If no one's got anything further, we'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. No one against. Confidential, we have nothing. So I'd like to thank everyone for their attendance and participation in our meeting today and call it closed.